Hey everybody, and Tony here with the review of Modest Mussorgsky's Boris Godunov, which I saw at the Deutsche Oper Berlin. The conductor was Kirill Karabits. The production was done by Richard Jones and Elaine Kidd. The assistant director was Constanze Weidknecht. The sets were done by Miriam Buta. The costumes were done by Nikki Gillibrand. The lights were handled by Mimi Jordan Sharon. The chorus master was Raymond Hughes. The children's chorus master was Christian Lindhorst. And the dramaturgy was handled by Sebastian Hanusa. And the version that I've watched tonight was the 1869 version. So there was no Polish act involving Marina Miniszek and her Jesuit minister Rangoni. There was no aria for Marina, which was Skushno Marinia. And there is no love duet between Grigory and Marina. This basically involves Boris's ascension to the throne, his guilt and madness, and of course, his eventual death. And whatever version one may listen to, whether it be the original 1869 version or the version composed for 1874, which includes the Polish act, Boris Godunov is one of Mussorgsky's most famous works of all time, mostly because of the totality of everything. The story is filled with drama and a lot of epic moments. The music is huge in terms of its totality. And on top of that, the main character of Boris Godunov is a huge sing for many a bass baritone or basso, and has become one of the most famous operas internationally, whether they hear it in their native Russia or in houses like the Metropolitan Opera House or even that of La Scala or anywhere else. Boris Godunov has been an opera which has gained a lot of acclaim and has gained a lot of accolades when it comes to the world of Russian opera. On top of that, this particular opera was based on Alexander Pushkin's drama, and this was also based on Nikolai Karamzin's History of the Russian Kingdoms. The basic plot of Boris Godunov goes like this. A huge throng of people have gathered on the Kremlin to await Boris Godunov's coronation. We then see Cherkolov making the announcement, and as Boris comes out to accept the crown and the scepter and his holy ball, he then faces the crowd, makes his oath that he will protect the people and will also protect the good of Russia, while at the same time Boris is experiencing a fair amount of guilt because of a crime he did to his own son, Dmitri, as he was supposed to be the one who was supposed to ascend the throne, but Boris ended up usurping it. Which is also made 5 years later through an old monk / chronicler, Pimen, as he also traces the line of the Tsars and who is the successor, who is the predecessor, and he does a great amount of research on that. While in the meantime, Grigory has a nightmare in which he is standing up high above a tower while he is being mocked on by a huge crowd of people. He dreams that he's falling down, but he realizes that he's still alive and still awake, and he gets the news from Pimen that Boris was the one who usurped the throne from his successor, Dmitri. So it's kind of up to Grigory to pretend to be Dmitri, hence he claims himself as the false Dmitri, as he travels on at first to Lithuania before he can get to Moscow to basically oust Boris himself. Whilst in Lithuania, he encounters two vagrant monks, Varlam and Misail, an innkeeper, and of course a customs officer. The customs officer asks Grigory for his identification, and Grigory pretends not to read. Varlam kind of covers for him, but finds out, oh, okay, Grigory is actually 20 years old and not 50. Grigory decides to hightail it out of the inn, thus leaving Varlam, Misail, the innkeeper, and the customs officer to be in hot pursuit of him. Meanwhile, Boris is spending time with his children, teenage daughter, Ksenia, and child son, Fyodor, where Ksenia is mourning the loss of her fiancé, while Fyodor is learning about the provinces of Moscow. However, despite the fact that Boris presents himself to be very fatherly towards his children, with the nurse also helping out, he still has his visions of guilt of what he did to Dmitri. Come Prince Vasily Shwisky, who then tells Godunov that there is going to be a pretender present in Russia who will take over the throne. Boris Godunov kind of knows that he shouldn't have anyone take it from him, as he knows that he is the ruler. He knows that he has attained the highest power. But at the same time, his guilt takes a major toll on him, where it carries through in the final act of the opera, where Boris, completely consumed by guilt and anguish, can no longer take that type of negativity, and he asks his son to come over. He comforts his son and reassures him that he will be the heir to the throne. He will be the one to take care of Mother Russia. And as the tower clock bell tolls, Boris's life slips away, with Fyodor mourning his death and Grigory taking over the throne, with the people of Russia mourning for the fate of their country, whilst the simpleton also joins in the mourning as well. So as one can tell, Boris Godunov has kind of become a national opera for the Russians because of such heavy themes like the want for power, political gain, and especially when it comes to the fate of the people. All of these themes are not only heavy, but it's sort of what made this opera stand out in its entirety. With that said, let's get on to what I thought about the production and costumes. Overall, I found it to be really good all throughout. Yes, there were times that I could have loved to have a little bit more grandeur in the scenery, but despite all that, I still have to say that everyone behind the production did a solid job in making it come alive and kind of making sure that they don't overblow everything with scenery. They managed to keep it to a bit of a minimum, but at the same time, I would have loved to see a lot more grandeur. But I love the designs when it comes to the backdrops and when it comes to the lighting. I have to say that everything is well done, and the costumes were also rather decent. One can definitely tell that the people behind the costumes sort of did their fair share of research of what people wore between the late 1500s to the early 1600s. But from what I can tell in this production, they sort of transported the action from the 1600s Russia all the way up to, I would say, 1800s Russia, probably the same era where Mussorgsky composed Boris Godunov. And as much as I hate to sound rather harsh, there were times that some of the costumes for the men almost look like track pants. As in, they don't look like something out of the militia, even though there are some hints, like we have some gentlemen wearing blazers and badges and really nice looking pants. But from where I sat, they almost kind of looked like track pants. But that's just me. I still have to give a lot of credit to all of the people behind the production and the costumes for making this quite vibrant in its own special way. So overall, I have to say that the production and the costumes were rather good, even though I would have loved to have a lot more grandeur, we could have used a little bit more gold or silver and a lot of other vibrant colors to show a lot of richness and luxury as well inside the palace. And I'm sure that why they kind of used some garish colors was also to show the people's plight, and especially when it comes to the turmoil they face. And what I also found rather interesting was the scene playing in Boris's mind, which is the murder of Dmitri. We see a kid wearing a mask, and at the same time, there are 3 masked assassins coming in to slit Dmitri's throat and drag him away, which I found rather creepy, but I thought it also showed Boris's crippling psyche. So when all is said and done, it was a job well done from both the production side and from the costume side. And now we get to the singers, starting off with Ayin Anger as our main anti-hero, Boris Godunov. Boris Godunov is one of the most coveted roles for either a bass baritone or a basso cantante. It is totally up there with the likes of Filippo II, Silva from Ernani, Procida from I Vespri Siciliani, Fiesco from Simon Boccanegra, Sparafucile from Rigoletto, Ramphis and the King from Aida, Mephistopheles from Faust, Banco from Macbeth, Enrico from Anna Bolena, Raimondo from Lucia de Lammermoor, Orovesso from Norma, Giorgio from I Puritani, and of course the Wagnerian roles Heinrich der Vogler from Lohengrin, Hans Sachs from Die Meistersinger von Nürnberg, the Dutchman from Der Fliegende Holländer, Fasolt from Das Rheingold, Gurnemans from Parsifal, and of course Wotan from the Ring Tetralogy. This role really does call for a huge range from a true basso cantante. He not only has to dig through the low notes, but he's also gotta have some high notes as well, mostly that of an F or even that of an F sharp. This role has attracted the likes of Fyodor Shalyapin, Boris Christoph, Gottlob Frick, Cesare Siepi, Jerome Hines, George London, Giorgio Tozzi, Nikolai Gyaurov, Rene Pape, and even that of Robert Lloyd, Paul Plishka, Samuel Raimi, Anatoly Kocherga, and Ferruccio Furlanetto. There is no shortage of basso cantantes who came, saw, and conquered this Mount Everest of a basso role. You not only need to be a great singer who can sing all the notes, whether they be the deepest notes of the basso staff all the way up to some high notes, but you gotta be an excellent actor. Without that theatricality necessary for Boris Godunov, you might as well not have this character. One has to combine theatricality and musicality to make this character work. And I thought that Ayin Anger did a fine job bringing Boris Godunov to life. What more can I expect from this gentleman? He has a round, rich, and supple voice. He has great theatricality. He stood strong, tall, and proud when he needed to be. And he has a very well-focused voice. I did not hear any wobbling, nor did I hear any inconsistencies with his voice whatsoever. In fact, it maintained that focus, it maintained that cleanliness, and it has a sort of brilliance that he emitted when it came to singing the role of Boris Godunov. Granted, in my opinion, he's not completely on the level of, let's say, a lot of the great singing actors of the past, like Fyodor Shalyapin, Ezio Pinza, Tancredi Passero, Alexander Kipnis, Nikolai Gyaurov, Cesare Siepi, Jerome Hines, George London, Giorgio Tozzi, Yevgeny Nesterenko, Paul Pliska, Samuel Ramey, and even that of Ferruccio Furlanetto. But I thought that Ain Anger did an amazing job holding out on his own superbly. This role is not an easy sing whatsoever. But despite all that, Signora Anger did an amazing job in embodying the role of Boris Godunov thanks to his round and rich basso cantante voice and of course that tall and handsome stage presence which he has always been well known for. Then we go to the other basso role, Pimen, sung superbly by Ante Yerkunitsa. Pimen, unlike Boris Godunov's basso cantante voice, needs a basso profondo. The vocal differences that are evident in Boris Godunov, Filippo II, and Attila, and even that of Le Comte de Sombry, and even that of Pimen, Il Grande Inquisitore, Leone, and even Marcel, is quite evident as roles like Boris and Filippo require a basso cantante, whereas Pimen and the Grand Inquisitor need a basso profondo. Lots of basso profondos who have sung the Grand Inquisitor, Fiesco, Procida, Sparafucile, Osmin, Il Commendatore, Sarastro, Fafner, Landgraf Hermann, König Marke, Veit Pogna, Titurel, and a lot of other great roles for a basso profondo, especially that of Seneca from Monteverdi's L'Incarnazione di Poppaea, have flocked to sing the role of Pimen. In fact, some Pimens have also climbed the ladder to also sing the likes of Boris Godunov, and of course, even had some Pimens who not only sang Boris, but also sang Varlam, most notably the likes of Boris Christoph and Nikolai Gyarov. There has been no shortage of really great Pimens, and the ones that come to my mind are the likes of Kurt Burma and Martti Talvela, just to name a few basso profondos who have attempted this particular role. And you need a basso profondo who can not only have a big and huge voice that can reach the cavernous depths, but much like his foil, Boris Godunov, he's gotta be a great actor. And I thought that Ante Yerkunitsa did an amazing job in embodying Pimen. He was able to make him old and withered, but also wise and experienced. His voice showed no signs of tatter, wear, or tear whatsoever. In fact, it is strong and sturdy and quite powerful in its own special way. Granted, I would have loved to have all those great basso profondo voices of the past, the likes of, let's say, Kurt Burma, Gottlob Frick, Martti Talvela, Manfred Schenk, and even that of Josef Greindl, or even Otto von Rohr, just to name a few great basso profondos of the past. But I digress. I thought that Ante Yerkunitsa did a great job on his own, and his chemistry with Ain Anger's Boris Godunov in their little scene together just showed how strong these two bassos really are when it comes to the overall endurance they give. They showed a lot of determination, strength, and courage to perform these two roles to the best of their abilities. Then we go to Varlam, sung by Yevgen Orlov. Now Varlam also does call for a fine basso cantante. There has also been no shortage of bassos who've been singing the likes of Filippo II, or that of Loredano, Monterone, Wotan, Klingzor, Ochs, and a lot of great roles for either a bass baritone, a basso cantante, or a basso profondo who have also flocked to sing Varlam. There has been also Varlams who also climbed up the ladder to sing Boris Godunov, and each of the singers who have also sung Varlam have also flocked to sing either Pimen or Boris and gained great success in all three roles. And Yevgen Orlov really stood strong as a performer. His voice has been getting better and better with every performance I watch him in, and his stage presence becomes a lot more involved, which is a great joy to see. And his chemistry with all of the leading players, especially that of Jörg Schürner's Misail and Robert Watson's Grigory, was superb. I definitely enjoyed him when he sang his little song, and he was just a great performer all throughout. Then we go to Schwisky, sung by the superb German character tenor Burkhard Ulrich. This role, much like his cousin Loge from Das Rheingold, has attracted a great deal of not only character tenors, but also that of spinto, full lyric, and maybe to some extent dramatic tenors kind of late in their career. This role calls for any tenor who can not only act the role, but also can sing the role superbly. What you need in Schwisky is not only a lot of lyricism from Belmonte, Don Ottavio, Percy from Anna Bolena, Lester from Maria Stuarda, and even that of Arturo from I Puritani, but you also gotta have a little bit of that spinto meatiness of Eleazar from La Juive, Roldunangy from Les Huguenots, Robert le Diable, Hernani, Carlo Mur from I Masnadieri, Jacopo Foscari from I Due Foscari, Arrigo from I Vespri Siciliani, and even Rodolfo from La Bohème. But you also gotta be a superb actor, much like what you really need in characters like Loge from Das Rheingold and Herodes from Salome. So what you really need is a combination of lyricism, dramatic singing, and of course, great character acting. And I thought that Burkhard Ulrich did a fine job. It was announced before the show began that he was a bit under the weather. Well, he didn't sound under the weather at all. In fact, he sounded rather fresh, and he was able to give Schwisky that kind of slimy nature which is present in his character. He was able to make him quite serpentine, which he handled wonderfully. And his chemistry with Ayn Anger's Boris really shows that there is a bit of a power struggle between Schwisky and Boris, where ultimately Boris kind of lost the battle and died while Schwisky stays alive and kind of watches him like a hawk. And I thought that Burkhard Ulrich was not only a fine singer, but he was also an equally fine actor. Grigory Otropiev was sung wonderfully by the young American spinto tenor Robert Watson. Now what you need from Grigory is not only a great amount of lyrical singing, but also that of dramatic capabilities when it comes to his vocal timbre and also that of his acting. But lest we forget, he's still quite young. He is in his late teens, early 20s, so that youthfulness is still rather necessary to bring this character to life. What you need in Grigory is the lyricism of a Tamino, Edgardo, Tonio, Pedrillo, and even Almaviva from Barbiere, and a lot of other great roles for a lyric tenor, but also that spinto meatiness of Jean de Leydon, Peleas, and Ricardo from Un ballo in Maschera. This role is not really a high singer like Tonio from La Fille du Régiment, or even that of Arturo or Alvino from Sonnambula and Puritani, nor is he a huge and meaty singer like, let's say, Zygmunt or Tannhäuser, but what you need in this particular role is a combination of lyrical singing with a lot of dramatic capabilities. And Robert Watson really stole the show in this particular role. Man, does he have a voice from the heavens. It has that nice ring and ping to his tone. He has a very handsome stage presence and also quite youthful at that too. And it was a great experience watching this tenor's career grow and grow. He stood out so wonderfully, and he had this type of exuberance which made him stand out. Then we go to Andrei Cherkolov, who was sung by Dong-Hwan Lee. What you need in Cherkolov, even though this role is a character role, is that you need a baritone with a strong and sturdy voice. Baritones who have sung the likes of Rigoletto, Germont, Renato from Umbalo and Maschera, Carlo from Ernani, Donner from Das Rheingold, Amfortas from Parsifal, Sixtus Beckmesser from the Meistersinger von Nuremberg, and even to some extent Papageno from the Zauberflöte, and of course Golau from Peleas and Melisande have also flocked to sing the role of Cherkolov. And while this role is rather small, it still calls for a great amount of dramatic acting. And Dong-Hwan Lee certainly was in tip-top shape when he sang this role. He was tall and handsome on stage. He had a strong presence, and he made the best out of this character part. Then we go to Boris's children, Ksenia and Fyodor. Ksenia was sung by the ever-superb Alexandra Hutton, and Fyodor was sung by Philipp Ammer, who is a member of the Chorakademie Dortmund. Going to Ksenia, what you need in this role is a light lyric soprano who can sound girlish and lovely. A lot of light lyric sopranos who have sung Ksenia have also sung the likes of Cherubino, Pamina, the Naiad from Ariadne auf Naxos, Gretel from Hänsel and Gretel, and even that of Adina from L'Elisir d'Amore. Whereas with Fyodor, this role has a very interesting history. It started out as a rather soubrette-ish role, meaning that a lot of light sopranos have sung this role, most notably that of Anna Case and Annalisa Rothenberger. But as time went on, this role has started to become the territory of a lot of lyric mezzos. But if you ask me, I always prefer it when a light soprano sings this role. Sure, some people do prefer it when a lyric mezzo sings the role of Fyodor, but I always like it when a light soprano sings the role of Fyodor because he has a lot of innocence. Light sopranos who've sung Fyodor have also went on to sing roles like Barbarina from Les Noces de Figaro and even that of the Dew Fairy from Hänsel and Gretel. Now, what more can I say about Alexandra Hutton as Ksenia? I thought she had a lovely voice, and she seems to really be at home in performing all of these delicious, youthful, and really girlish roles. And Philipp Ammer as Fyodor was a superb young singer with a great future ahead of him. He has a lovely stage presence, and he was rather adorable on stage. Then we go to the innkeeper, sung by Annika Schlicht. Now, while this role is not as huge in scale as, let's say, Orfeo, Fenenna, Brangena, Waltraute, or even that of Dalila, this role does require a sturdy mezzocontralto who can be able to act the part wonderfully. And there has been no shortage of either dramatic mezzos or even that of contraltos who have found a lot of success singing this role. And Annika Schlicht did an amazing job singing the role of the innkeeper. And I can definitely see her career growing and growing so brilliantly that I cannot wait to see her take on a lot more leading roles. Ronita Miller was a superb nurse to Ksenia and Fyodor. And what you need in the nurse is a strong contralto voice. And while this role is not as huge as, let's say, Ulrika from Un ballo in Maschera, Clytemnestra from Elektra, or even that of Erda from both Rheingold and Siegfried, it's sort of more on the lines of, let's say, Mother Goose from The Rake's Progress and even the fortune teller from Arabella. Now, what you need is a contralto who can not only sing wonderfully, but also has to be a superb actress. And Ronita Miller was in her absolute A game as the nurse. What I really love about Madame Miller is the way she uses her voice. It has that rich, dark, and lovely color, and she was able to make a lot of great music with that voice. And of course, her stage presence, which is so warm and inviting, but at the same time rather firm as the nurse. Then we go to Missile, who was sung by Jörg Schörner. What you need in this role is not only a Spieltenor, but also a character tenor. Now, there has been no shortage of character tenors who have sung the role of Mime, who also flocked to sing Missile. And what they managed to get out of Missile is a lot of great acting chops, thanks to his really fine character tenor voice. Matthew Newland's Simpleton was wonderfully sung, and even though this role is rather small, you definitely need a light lyric tenor to bring this role to life. Lots of light lyric tenors who have sung The Simpleton have also kind of went on to sing roles like Ferrando from Cose fan tutte, or even that of Arturo Bacla from Lucia de Lammermoor. And I thought that Matthew Newland was really fine as the Simpleton. He was able to make him really sympathetic as a character. You just can't help but give him a huge hug after he's been tortured and cajoled by the townspeople and the children. You just feel sorry for him. But nonetheless, he was a real treat to watch, and he really got into the character. Andrew Dickinson's Boyar in Attendance was superbly sung. And even though this role is also quite small, you do need a lyric tenor to do this role justice. And Andrew Dickinson was extremely superb in this particular role, and he was able to make the best out of this small role. We also had such superb singing from the likes of Andrew Harris as Nikitic, Stephen Bronk as Mituch, and Samuel Dale Johnson as the customs officer. So overall, the singing was outstanding, and special kudos has to go to Ante Yerkunitsa, Ayin Anger, and Yevgen Orlov for doing outstanding jobs singing the roles of Pimen, Boris Godunov, and Varlam. These bassos were the absolute stars. They were more than just stars. They were gods. Their voices were sumptuous and strong. They were able to stand on their own 2 feet handsomely, but more than anything, they sang the absolute hell out of their roles, and the conducting done by Kirill Karabits was superb. He knew how to bring in that necessary tension throughout the orchestra, the singers, the chorus, and of course the statisterie, and he did an amazing job bringing everything together, and the chorus and orchestra of the Deutsche Oper Berlin were, as always, superb. So overall, what a blast I had watching Boris Godunov. Everything went together superbly, but more than anything, the singers were strong all around. And for those of you who caught this particular production of Mussorgsky's Boris Godunov, what did you think of it? Did you really love all 3 bassos, mainly Ante Yerkunitsa, Ayin Anger, and Yevgen Orlov in their respective roles? Did you feel like there was another singer who stood out so handsomely? Or did you feel like there were some aspects of either the singers, the production, or the conducting or chorus that just didn't really hold up to you so much? Comment below and let me know. Well, that's all for now. Be sure to tune in tomorrow for my review of Verdi's Don Carlo, starring Jamie Barton as Eboli at the Deutsche Oper Berlin. So until then, good night, everybody.